Welcome to another episode of Nina Williams in Depth. I'm a friendly tree, and today I want to talk to you about the reverse ivory cutter. Not the regular ivory cutter, the reverse. So we're just going to make sure our settings are all correct here. That looks pretty good to me, except we'll put that normal there. And we'll get right into it. So, the reverse ivory cutter. Why is it called this? One, because that's the name in the move list. Move number 64 is called reverse ivory cutter. And two, because it looks exactly like ivory cutter, but in reverse. You can see here the input is back 1+4, while ivory cutter's input is 1+4. And before I visually show you these moves, I just want to stress it's really important that you have a button mapped to 1+4, just to remove unnecessary misinputs where you can end up being launch punishable if you accidentally get something like a back +1. So here you can see I've got it linked to my left bumper, which is also the L1 button on a PlayStation controller, or the top right button on most arcade sticks. So I've got it as the top right button here. So make sure you have a button mapped, because the last thing you want is to go and try and do this move and accidentally get that move, as everyone experiences. Okay, so the reverse ivory cutter looks like this. If we compare it to ivory cutter, which is a forward spinny move, this is a back spinny move. The move itself is 16 frame startup, and it launches on normal hit. It is two moves, two attacks in a row that are a block string, meaning that if you block the first one, you are guaranteed to block the second one. On block, so it's a launch on hit. You can see it goes 16 frame startup and then 13 frame. The second move has two active frames. If we look at block, it's -15. So this move is launch punishable by most of the cast, unlike ivory cutter. So while ivory cutter is a frame faster and safe on block, reverse ivory cutter is a frame slower, 16 frame, and launch punishable by most on block. Of course, the trade here is that it's a launcher, so while the risk is higher, the reward is much greater. So with that in mind, we often use it as a punisher move, opposed to just throwing it out because of the risk. You'll also notice the damage. So if we get it hit again, it's less damage than ivory cutter, with 4 damage on the first hit, 14 on the second, being a total of 18 damage, opposed to the 24 damage of 4 and 20. But once again, you get a full combo from it, so that doesn't really matter, it's still higher, more reward. But because of it being 4 and then 14 damage, we've got the same kind of scenario as I talked about with ivory cutter, where it's not a move that you're looking to trade with. So if I do this, for example, trading with a dick jab, it's neutral, okay? So it's the same situation, neutral, except you don't recover crouching. And because you've only done 4 damage there, and you can see because I was the Nina doing that, because I got a counter hit, I got 6 damage. So if an opponent's trading with a 10 frame, they're going to come out on top in this scenario. So that's very important to keep in mind. It's not a move you're looking to do as a trade or really as a frame trap in any way. Okay, talking about the range. So if you get to about range 2.2, that's going to launch. If we get a little bit further, 2.3, we can still get it. That's about the tip of what I'd say. So if we get to 2.4, you can see there the second hit does not connect. Alright, so that's the range, that's the properties there. What about tracking? So if we get them to guard all, and then we'll put them sidestep left, what we're going to notice here, it actually tracks pretty well. If we go -1, not so well. So it's another one of those cases where you kind of want to do it when you're, you kind of want to do it when your opponent is at a bit of frame disadvantage, which is normally the time when a lot of people will sidestep. So we'll catch people. And the other thing is, let's see if I can establish this. What's a move with a lot of pushback? Let's go back. No, okay. Anyway, what I'm trying to establish, but I can't think of how to set it up, is the second move actually has a fair bit more tracking. So even if they sidestep the first hit, you're often going to clip them with the second hit. So there you can see just a few scenarios of it tracking pretty well, really. Yeah, so you can see, so it's a pretty good tracking move, but you're not really going to use it unless you're willing to deal with the risk involved. If you know somebody's going to step, I mean, if it catches them, then it catches them and you get a big reward. But be aware that if they step and block, or if they don't step and they just block, you get launched for it. Alright, I think it's about time we move on to the application. Okay, so how do we apply Reverse Ivory Cutter into our gameplay with Nina? I've already kind of alluded to this, and that's the fact that it is a punishment tool. So if you have a move that the opponent does that you know is -16 or greater, as long as this will reach, we know we can launch punish it. So that is -16 for the opponent, or +16 for me, so it works as a punisher. So this is a punisher combo starter. The other thing we would use it for, that we do as an example of this, is not only as a block punish tool, so not only referring to when we block a move, but because of its speed and its range, we use it as a whiff punishment move too. Unfortunately, there can be a bit of an issue with range, where if the first hit whiffs, you may find that they can block in time and recover, because the second hit, if we've got the first hit being 16 frame, second 13 frame, that means it comes out in 29 frames, which is not a fast whiff punisher, is it? There is also a bit of an inconsistency with this move, which I'm not going to be able to replicate here, not easily at least, where sometimes the opponent can get hit by the first move and block the second move. Despite the fact that the second move has more range and better tracking than the first, it will sometimes whiff. So that's a bit of an inconsistency, unfortunately. So block punisher and whiff punisher are the main uses, I'd say, for this move. You could also use it as a confirm of something like a back +4. So that move is +18, as long as you're in range, and against most of the cast, as long as you're in range, you can launch it. Well, you can get a guaranteed Reverse Ivory Cutter from there. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Reverse Ivory Cutter as a launcher, okay? So, it works as a launcher. What kind of combos can we do? And this is where it's a bit of a special launcher for Nina. If you look at this when we send them up, do you notice that the placement is a little bit different? So, if we look at here, you can see they're touching toe to toe. If I stand still, if I were to continue walking forward, we would not be toe to toe. Not quite. We are there because I've realigned. Anyway, the point I want to put here is it actually puts Nina slightly off axis to her right. So just like up forward 4 does, it shifts her a tiny bit. This puts her in a better position to do her while standing 1 combos, her butterfly loops. So for example, if I were to do this, right? So I just did up forward 4 into 5. If I just did it down forward 2 into that, oops, sorry, it's not going to work because I'm not off axis enough. So you've got more potential, and it's easier for you to do these while standing 1 loops. So where in a down forward 2 you might have to do a micro side step right 1 to get those kind of things, or you at least have to do a down forward 1 to get it to work. You're off axis enough from the launcher that you can just do while standing 1 loops from it, or you can just do an up forward 4. You want more damage, obviously. So that's a big advantage of this move as a launcher. It actually positions her in the direction, in the placement where she wants to be to do these loops. And I think that's very important for Nina because she is very axis dependent when it comes to these comes to her combos. Okay, and this is going to be quite short. There's only one other thing I really want to talk about with Reverse Ivory Cutter. And it's similar to what I talked about with Ivory Cutter, about it being good for shutting down stances. If you've got a character like Eddie, and he's going into relaxed stance, you can interrupt it with anything, so depending on the way he gets in. So for example, if we do something like a down 2-3, we know because it's -14, sorry, we know that that kind of stuff is guaranteed. I said minus 14, sorry. But what I mean is we know that we can get OTGs to work. Another example's here. So I can get up forward 3 to float consistently. But when we get to things like down back 3, you'll see here I can't get him to block that. Okay, so that's if he tries to cancel. Let's do relax 4. Yikes. So if we do this, we get a launch. Now let's just get him going into relax and not doing anything. Oh, why do I keep doing that? Clearly not an Eddie player. There we go. So now if he does nothing, it knocks him away. And last for good measure, no, that's good. So if we've got these different options, we've got cancelling the stance, doing an attack, and staying in the stance. If we do these, this will actually beat all of them. And if he tries to cancel the stance, or if he tries to do an attack, you'll get a launch. If he stays in the stance, you knock away. So that's compared to the down 4 option, which is what a lot of people do. Alright, let's go one by one so you can see. So that's clearly very little reward, and they could technically duck and punish. That's not very much reward. And that's no launch. So in scenarios like this, reverse Ivory Cutter is actually the best option you can do. But of course you need to make sure you're using it in the right transitions, because if you use it in a transition that he can get up and block, then he can launch you. And you do not want that. So in conclusion, Nina's reverse Ivory Cutter is input with b+1+4. It is a 16 frame launcher of a mid string, and really that's its main purpose. You use it as a block punish for -16 or greater moves, as long as it'll reach, and use it as a whiff punish due to its speed and its decent range. The range being connecting at about distance 2.4 from the in-game data. It does track very well to both directions, but due to the high risk of it, I would suggest not using it to catch people stepping, and in favour, well, more favourably use it for punishment. It has similar properties to Ivory Cutter, where it can disrupt people's stances, it can knock people out of stance, but once again, if you're not familiar with the situation, it can have a lot of inherent risk with it involved. And as far as being a launcher goes, it shifts the character, it shifts Nina slightly to the right, putting her in a better position to do her while standing 1 loops, making it more consistent and making it more comfortable and not requiring micro side steps to get her to do her while standing 1 loops. How do you people like reverse Ivory Cutter? Do you think it's a good move? Do you think it needs any changes at all? Do you use it much in your gameplay, or do you opt to go between her down forward 2 and her up forward 2-1 more, so going from her 15 frame to her 18 frame launcher more? Thank you everyone, I'm a Friendly Tree, please like and subscribe and comment below. I'll catch you next time.
You win.
What's done is done.